The morning started like any other on Earth. People went to work, children played in parks, and ships moved cargo between the planets. Nobody expected the sky to tear open above them. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking coffee in her office when the alarm started screaming. She dropped her cup and ran to the command center. The screens showed something impossible floating above Earth. It was huge, dark, and covered in weapons that could destroy cities. "What is that thing?" Sarah asked. Lieutenant Park looked scared. "Ma'am, it just appeared. No warning. Our sensors can't figure out how big it really is." The ship was 3 kilometers long. It looked like someone had built a floating city and covered it with cannons. Strange blue lights ran along its sides. The metal was black and seemed to eat the sunlight around it. "Get me the defense fleet," Sarah ordered. "All ships, battle stations now." Earth's defense fleet was small. They had 12 cruisers, 30 destroyers, and a few hundred fighter ships. These ships were built to fight pirates and protect trade routes. They were not built to fight whatever was hanging in their sky. The alien ship did nothing for 10 minutes. It just floated there like a mountain that had learned to fly. Then something changed. A part of the ship opened and a small craft came out. This smaller ship was still bigger than Earth's largest destroyer. The small ship sent a message. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and strange. It spoke perfect English, but the words felt wrong. "People of Earth, I am Ambassador Zethkri of the Galactic Confederation. Your species has broken laws that are older than your civilization. You have taken planets that do not belong to you. You have built weapons that threaten the peace of the galaxy." Sarah felt her blood turn cold. Galactic Confederation? Laws? Nobody on Earth had ever heard of such things. The voice continued. "You have 24 hours to surrender. Remove all your people from the 16 star systems you have illegally occupied. Destroy all your military ships. Submit to Confederation authority. If you refuse, we will erase your species from existence." The message ended. The command center was quiet except for the sound of computers humming. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park whispered, "should we try to talk to them?" Sarah nodded. "Open a channel. Let me speak to this ambassador." The screen flickered and an alien face appeared. Zethkri had gray skin, large black eyes, and no nose. When it spoke, its mouth barely moved. "Admiral Chen, we have studied your military. You have 200 combat ships. We have 1. Mathematics suggests you should surrender." Sarah kept her voice steady. "We never knew about any confederation. We never knew about any laws. Maybe we can work something out." Zethkri made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your ignorance does not excuse your crimes." Many species have said similar words. All of them learn to obey or cease to exist. What if we leave some of the systems but keep others? What if we pay some kind of tax or tribute? No. The word hit like a hammer. Complete surrender or complete destruction. These are your options. "Thur." Screen went dark. Sarah turned to her officers. "Get me President Martinez. Get me the Chinese premier. Get me everyone. And get me our fleet commanders." Within an hour, Earth's leaders were talking through secure video links. The president looked tired and scared. The Chinese premier kept shaking his head. The British prime minister was already talking about evacuation plans. "Can we fight it?" President Martinez asked. Sarah looked at the tactical display. The alien ship was still just floating there. "I don't know, sir. We're scanning it now, but our sensors can barely understand what they're looking at." Commander Torres from the Mars Defense Platform called in. "Admiral, I've got telescopes watching that thing. It's not just one ship. I can see smaller ships inside it, maybe 100 of them." The room got even quieter. "What about our weapons?" the president asked. Sarah pulled up another screen. "Our biggest guns are the plasma cannons on the heavy cruisers. They can crack asteroids and destroy space stations. But this thing, it's 3 kilometers long. Our ships could probably fit inside its cargo bays." General Kim from Seoul spoke up. "What about nuclear weapons? We still have missiles." "Against something that can travel between stars?" Sarah shook her head. "Sir, If they can build ships like that, our nuclear weapons probably look like firecrackers to them. President Martinez rubbed his face. So what do we do? Before anyone could answer, the alarms went off again. On every screen, they saw the HFY alien ship turning, its front end pointed toward Mars. All stations, this is Admiral Chen. The alien vessel is changing position. All ships maintain distance but stay ready. The alien ship began to glow. The blue lights got brighter. Something was building up inside those weapons. Lieutenant Park's voice cracked. Ma'am, Mars Defense Platform is reporting massive energy readings from the alien ship. Sarah opened a channel to Mars. Commander Torres, get your people to the escape pods now. Admiral, we're not leaving our post. Mars Defense has families here. We have children in the schools. Commander, that's an order. Evacuate now. But it was too late. The alien ship fired. It was not like the movies. There was no bright beam, no explosion that lit up space. Instead, space itself seemed to bend around Mars's orbital stations. The metal twisted, the air escaped, and 3,000 people died in silence. The Mars Defense Platform, the trade stations, the mining facilities. All of it was gone in 5 seconds. Where proud human buildings had floated around the red planet, now there was only empty space and scattered metal. Nobody spoke for a long time. Finally, President Martinez's voice came through the speakers. Admiral Chen, how long do we have? Sarah looked at the countdown clock. 23 hours and 14 minutes, sir. And if we fight? Sarah looked at her officers. She looked at the screens showing their tiny fleet. She looked at the alien ship that had just erased Mars's orbital infrastructure like brushing away dust. Sir, if we fight, they'll kill every human being in the solar system, maybe every human being anywhere. The president was quiet for a moment. Prepare the surrender message. Sarah closed her eyes. In 24 hours, humanity would give up everything they had built among the stars. They would destroy their own ships. They would abandon the colonies where children had been born under alien suns, but they would live. Outside the command center windows, the alien ship waited like a dark moon. It had not moved since destroying the Mars stations. It did not need to. It had made its point. Sarah opened her eyes and started typing the surrender speech. The words felt like poison, but she wrote them anyway. Tomorrow humanity would kneel. Tonight, they could still pretend to be free. News traveled fast across human space. Every colony, every ship, every space station heard about the alien ultimatum within hours. The destruction of Mars' orbital facilities played on every screen. People watched their strongest defenses disappear, like smoke, and knew that resistance was impossible. On New Shanghai Colony, families packed their belongings with shaking hands. They had built farms on this world, raised children under its orange sun. Now they had 18 hours to leave forever. The colony ships that had brought them here generations ago were long gone. The evacuation ships could barely carry half the population. Dr. Marcus Webb stood in the ruins on Kepler 4.2b and did not pack anything. While everyone else prepared to surrender, he kept digging through the alien artifacts his team had found. The stone tablets and metal fragments were thousands of years old. Maybe they held answers. Dr. Webb, his assistant Jenny, called from across the dig site. The evacuation ship leaves in 6 hours. We need to go. Marcus wiped dirt from another stone tablet. The symbols were getting clearer. Give me 2 more hours, Jenny. Something important is here. The aliens will kill us all if we don't surrender. Maybe. But maybe there's another way. On Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen had not slept. She stood in the command center watching their pitiful fleet try to prepare for battle. Every computer simulation ended the same way. Total human defeat in less than 10 minutes. Captain Maria Santos called in from the destroyer Defiance. Admiral, we've run every tactical program we have. Nothing works. That alien ship is too strong. Sarah studied the tactical displays. The alien vessel, which they now called the Void Render, had not moved since destroying the Mars stations. It just waited, like a cat watching mice. What if we hit it with everything at once? Sarah asked her tactical team. Lieutenant Park shook his head. Ma'am, our biggest weapons barely register on their shields. We could fire for hours and not hurt them. Commander Williams from the heavy cruiser New York spoke up. Admiral, what if we ram them full speed, maximum impact? Sarah calculated quickly. The Void Render masses about 50 times more than our biggest ship. It would be like throwing pebbles at a tank. The president's voice came through the secure channel. Admiral, how is the surrender message coming? Sarah looked at the half-written speech on her screen. Every word felt like betrayal. Almost finished, sir. But she was not writing a surrender. She was trying to find hope in mathematics that had no hope to give. On Kepler 442b, Dr. Marcus Webb made a breakthrough. The stone tablet in his hands was different from the others. The writing was newer, carved in desperation by someone who knew they were about to die. Jenny, come look at this. His assistant ran over. The symbols were crude but clear. They told a story that made Marcus's heart race. This is not from the original builders, he said. Someone else was here. Someone who faced the same enemy we're facing now. The tablet spoke of a species called the Velnathi. They had been powerful, spread across dozens of star systems. Then, the Confederation came with their massive warships. The Velnathi had fought, but they had lost. But they had learned something important before they died. Marcus read the symbols carefully. The Velnathi had discovered that the Confederation's great warships had a weakness. The power systems that made them so strong also made them vulnerable. At specific frequencies, the energy cores became unstable. Jenny, get me a communication link to Admiral Chen. Emergency priority. Dr. Webb, the communication arrays are being prepared for demolition. Part of the surrender. Do it now. Before they destroy everything. While Marcus tried to call Earth, Captain Santos was preparing her ship for a battle she could not win. The Defiance was not the biggest ship in the fleet, but it was the fastest. She had ordered her crew to remove everything unnecessary. Extra, armor, backup systems, even some of the life support equipment. Captain, her first officer asked, why are we making the ship lighter? Because when we fight that monster, speed might be all we have. Her crew looked at her with confusion and fear. They all knew the surrender was happening in a few hours. Why prepare for battle? Santos did not tell them that she had no intention of surrendering. Some things were more important than survival. On Earth, the alien ship had been silent for 12 hours. No more messages from Ambassador Zethkri. No demands or threats. It just waited with the patience of something that had done this many times before. The communication from Dr. Webb finally reached Admiral Chen. His voice was excited and desperate. Admiral, you can't surrender. I've found something. The aliens have a weakness. Sarah felt a spark of hope for the first time in hours. What kind of weakness, Doctor? Their power systems. The Velnathi discovered it thousands of years ago. If you can hit the main power core with sustained fire at exactly the right frequency, the whole ship will shut down. Sarah called up the tactical display of the Void Render. Where is this power core? That's the problem. It's deep inside the ship behind all their armor and shields. And the frequency has to be exactly right for exactly 4.7 seconds. Any shorter, and nothing happens. Any longer, and you destroy the targeting system. Sarah's hope began to fade. Doctor, how would we get close enough to target something inside their ship? Marcus was quiet for a moment. I don't know, Admiral. The Velnathi never figured that part out. That's why they're extinct. After the call ended, Sarah stared at the alien ship on her screens. A weakness that was impossible to exploit. It was like being told that a locked door had a key, but the key was on the other side of the door. Lieutenant Park brought her a cup of coffee. Ma'am, the surrender speech is scheduled to broadcast in 2 hours. Should I prepare the transmission equipment? Sarah did not answer immediately. She was thinking about Captain Santos and her modified destroyer. She was thinking about the impossible mathematics of the Velnathi discovery. She was thinking about the families on New Shanghai who had 18 hours to abandon their homes. Ma'am? Sarah, made a decision that would either save humanity or destroy it completely. Cancel the surrender broadcast. Ma'am? Get me Captain Santos. Get me all the fleet commanders. And get me Dr. Webb back on the line. Lieutenant Park looked confused. Admiral, if we don't surrender, they'll kill us all. If we do surrender, we stop being human. Sarah turned to face her officers. Sometimes the choice isn't between winning and losing. Sometimes the choice is between dying free or living as slaves. She opened a channel to the entire defense fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. We have 18 hours to do something impossible. We're going to kill that alien ship. The communication channels exploded with voices. Confusion, fear, excitement, desperation. But no one asked her to reconsider. They were going to fight. Even if they died, they were going to fight. The defense fleet had never moved so fast. Ships that had been preparing for surrender suddenly became workshops. Engineers worked without sleep, welding new weapons onto hulls, removing safety systems, pushing engines beyond their limits. Captain. Maria Santos stood in the modified cargo bay of the Defiance. Where emergency supplies used to be stored, her crew had installed every weapon they could find. Plasma cannons from mining ships, railguns from asteroid defense platforms, even old missile launchers from decommissioned fighters. Captain. Her, weapons officer reported. We've tripled our firepower, but the ship mass is now unbalanced. We'll be hard to control in combat. Santos nodded. Better to be hard to control than easy to kill. What about the frequency modulation Dr. Webb requested? Installed, but untested. We won't know if it works until we try it. Dr. Webb had sent detailed specifications from Kepler 442b. The Velnathi had discovered that the Confederation ships had power cores that resonated at specific frequencies. Hit them just right, and the entire energy system would cascade into failure. The problem was getting close enough to try. Admiral Chen studied the tactical plans her officers had developed. Every simulation ended badly, but some ended less badly than others. The best approach is a multi-vector attack, Lieutenant Park explained. If we come at them from 6 different directions simultaneously, we might confuse their targeting systems long enough for Captain Santos to reach the targeting zone. Chen looked at the numbers. Out of 200 ships, they would lose at least 150 in the first minute. The survivors would face a fully alert alien warship with unlimited ammunition. What are our chances of success? She asked. Approximately 3%, ma'am. Chen almost smiled. 3% was better than 0. On the Void Render, Ambassador, Zethkri was growing impatient. The humans had not responded to the surrender ultimatum. Their deadline was approaching, and still no communication. Status of human military assets? He asked his tactical officer. Unchanged. Their ships remain in defensive positions around their planet. No sign of retreat or surrender preparation. Zethkri was puzzled. In 300 years of Confederation expansion, no species had ever ignored a final ultimatum. They either surrendered or attacked immediately in desperate fury. This silence was unprecedented. Perhaps they are preparing a surrender ceremony, suggested the tactical officer. Perhaps. Prepare the compliance weapons. If they resist, make their destruction visible from every human world. Let them all see the price of defiance. Captain Santos gathered her crew in the modified cargo bay that now served as their weapons control center. 43 men and women looked at her with faces that knew they were about to die. I won't lie to you, she said. This mission has almost no chance of success. The alien ship is faster than us, stronger than us, and smarter than us. Our job is to get close enough to fire into their power core for exactly 4.7 seconds. Chief Engineer Rodriguez raised his hand. Captain, what happens if we succeed? If we succeed, their ship shuts down. The rest of our fleet can board them, or force them to negotiate. And if we fail, Santos was quiet for a moment. If we fail, we die. But we die trying to save humanity instead of watching it surrender. Nobody asked to transfer to another ship. Nobody asked to be left behind. They were all volunteers, but they stayed volunteers. On Earth, families watched the news broadcasts with confusion and terror. The surrender deadline was now only 6 hours away, but their government was talking about resistance. Children asked their parents why the spaceships were not coming home. President Martinez called Admiral Chen one last time. "Sarah, are you sure about this? We could still broadcast the surrender." "Sir, if we surrender now, we lose 16 colonies and our entire military. If we fight and lose, we lose everything. If we fight and win..." 3% chance, you said? "Yes, sir." The president was quiet for a long time. "Do it." The attack began 4 hours before the deadline. Admiral Chen had decided not to wait. Better to fight when the aliens were relaxed than when they were expecting trouble. The first wave consisted of 60 fighters, small, fast ships that launched from hidden positions behind Earth's moon. Their job was not to hurt the Void Render, but to make it notice them. Ambassador Zethkri watched the approaching fighters with amusement. 60 small craft. Do they expect to damage us with such toys? Perhaps it is a gesture of defiance before surrender, his tactical officer suggested. Destroy them. Show the humans the futility of resistance. The Void Render's defensive systems activated. Beams of energy reached out across space and touched the human fighters. Each touch meant a ship and its crew vanished in silent fire. But while the alien weapons targeted the fighters, they did not notice the second wave. 30 destroyers approached from behind the alien ship, their engines running silent and cold. Santos watched the tactical display from her position with the third wave. The fighters were dying as planned. The destroyers were almost in position. Soon, it would be her turn. "All weapons charged and ready," her weapons officer reported. Frequency modulation locked to Dr. Webb's specifications. Engine status? Engines at 140% capacity. "We'll have maybe 10 minutes before they burn out completely," Santos nodded. The Defiance would not survive this battle even if everything went perfectly. They had sacrificed too much speed for firepower, too much safety for attack capability. The destroyers opened fire. 30 ships poured everything they had into the Void Render's rear shields. The alien ship's defensive screens flared with absorbed energy, but they held. "Minimal damage to alien vessel," came the report from Admiral Chenter beginning third wave attack. This was Santos's moment. The Defiance and 5 other modified ships accelerated toward the alien battleship at maximum speed. They came from the front, while the destroyers attacked from behind. Ambassador Zethkri was no longer amused. Tactical analysis. How many human ships are attacking? Current count is 96 vessels in 3 attack waves. This is not a gesture of defiance. This is an actual military assault. Impossible. Our intelligence indicated they understood their situation. "Sir, the lead ship in the 3rd attack wave is approaching at extremely high speed. Projected impact in 40 seconds. Zethkri studied the tactical display. One small human ship was racing directly toward his vessel's most heavily armored section. It was either a ramming attack or something more sophisticated. Target that ship. Maximum firepower. The Void Render's main guns turned toward the approaching Defiance. Energy beams that could destroy cities focused on one small destroyer racing through space. Santos felt her ship shake as alien weapons hammered her shields. The lights flickered, then went out, then came back on emergency power. "Shields down to 20%, someone reported. Hull breaches on decks 2 and 5. Distance to target, 15 seconds. The Defiance was falling apart around her crew, but it kept flying. Sparks filled the air, the gravity generator failed, and half the weapon systems went offline. 10 seconds to target. Santos could see the alien ship filling her view screen now. It was massive, beautiful, and terrible. She could see the exact spot Dr. Webb had identified, a small section where the hull was slightly different. 5 seconds. Weapons locked on target. 3 seconds. Fire. The Defiance fired every weapon it had at the same tiny spot on the Void Render's hull. Plasma cannons, railguns, missiles, and energy beams, all focused on an area smaller than a basketball court. The modified frequency Dr. Webb had discovered turned their weapons into something the aliens had never seen before. Captain Santos counted the seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. Around her, the ship was dying. The reactor was overloading. The hull was cracking open and most of her crew was already dead. But their weapons kept firing. 4.5 seconds. 4.6. 4.7. Target achieved. Her weapons officer shouted, just before. An explosion threw him across the bridge. The Defiance broke apart a moment later. Santos saw space through the shattered view screen and felt the cold reaching for her. But she was smiling. They had done it. On the void render, Ambassador Zethkri felt his ship shudder. Then the lights went out. Report, he demanded. Sir, we have cascade failure in the main power core. All systems are shutting down. How is that possible? Unknown, sir. The human weapons should not have been able to penetrate our shields. The massive alien warship went dark. Its engines stopped. Its weapons powered down. Its shields collapsed. For the first time in 300 years, a Confederation battleship was helpless. Admiral Chen watched from her command ship as the void render went silent. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. All ships, hold position. Do not fire on the alien vessel. Ma'am, Lieutenant Park asked, should we destroy it while it's defenseless? Chen thought about it. The smart military move would be to finish them off. But something told her there might be a better way. Open a communication channel to the alien ship. Static filled the speakers. For several minutes, then a familiar voice answered. Ambassador Zethkri sounded different now, confused and maybe even afraid. Admiral Chen, you have surprised us. Ambassador, I want to talk about terms. Terms? You have won. We are at your mercy. Chen looked around the command center. Her officers were staring at her with wide eyes. Nobody had expected to survive this battle, let alone win it. I don't want to destroy your ship, Ambassador. I want to understand why you came here in the first place. There was a long pause. We came because your species is expanding too rapidly. You are taking systems that other races have claimed. You are building weapons that could threaten the peace we have maintained for millennia. What if I told you we never knew about these other races? What if I told you we were just trying to find new homes for our people? Another pause. Many species have said similar things. What happened to those species? They learned to obey our laws or they were removed from the galaxy. Chen felt a chill. Removed? You mean killed? The Confederation maintains order through strength. Chaos leads to war. War leads to extinction. Chen was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then she made a decision that would change everything. Ambassador, I want to show you something. Will you allow a small shuttle to approach your ship? Admiral, our weapons are offline. You could destroy us regardless. I'm not going to destroy you, I'm going to help you. On the crippled void render, Zethkri stared at his tactical displays, in confusion. The human fleet was not positioning for attack. Instead, they were forming up in rescue formations. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the humans are launching rescue shuttles. They appear to be searching for survivors from their destroyed ships. Survivors? Their own survivors? Yes, sir, they are also. Sir, they are requesting permission to assist with our damage control. Zethkri had served in the Confederation military for 200 years. He had witnessed the surrender of dozens of species. He had seen worlds burned from orbit and populations relocated to work camps. But he had never seen anything like this. They want to help us repair our ship? That appears to be their intention, sir. Dr. Webb finally arrived from Kepler 442b on a fast courier ship. Admiral Chen met him in the shuttle bay, and together they flew to the void render. The alien ship was enormous up close. Even powerless, it looked dangerous. They docked with an airlock that had been manually opened by the alien crew. Ambassador Zethkri was waiting for them, along with 2 guards who looked nervous. Dr. Webb, Admiral Chen, this is unprecedented. Chen looked around the alien corridor. It was beautiful in a cold way. Everything was perfectly designed, perfectly clean, perfectly orderly. Ambassador, how many species has the Confederation conquered? We do not conquer. We maintain order. Approximately 400 species currently live under Confederation protection. Protection? What are they being protected from? Zethkri seemed confused by the question. From chaos, from war, from themselves. Doctor, Webb spoke up. Ambassador, we found ruins on one of our planets. They were left by a species called the Velnathi. What happened to them? The alien's expression changed. For the first time, he looked uncomfortable. The Velnathi refused to accept Confederation authority. They chose extinction over order. They chose freedom, Chen said quietly. Freedom leads to chaos. Chaos leads to war. War leads to extinction. This is the natural progression of all species. What if you're wrong? Chen asked. What if species can be free without destroying themselves? Zethkri looked at her with his large black eyes. Impossible. We have seen it tried 400 times. It always ends the same way. Then why are we having this conversation instead of you killing us all? The ambassador was quiet for a long time. Around them, human and alien crews were working together to repair critical systems on the Void Render. Chen could hear them talking, sharing tools, solving problems together. Finally, Zethkri spoke. Your tactics were irrational. No species has ever sacrificed so much for such a small chance of success. No species has ever shown mercy to a defeated enemy who came to destroy them. Maybe that's because no species has ever been human. Explain. Chen thought about Captain Santos and her crew, who had died to save people they would never meet. She thought about Dr. Webb, who had kept digging through alien ruins while everyone else prepared to surrender. She thought about her own officers, who had chosen to fight instead of surrender even when the odds were impossible. We don't think the same way you do, Ambassador. When you told us to surrender or die, we heard a third option. Which was? Fight and win. Zethkri made that sound that might have been laughter again, but this time it sounded different. Less cruel, more puzzled. The mathematics indicated you could not win. The mathematics were wrong, Dr. Webb said. They didn't account for human stubbornness. Around them, the lights began to flicker back on. Human engineers had helped the aliens restart their backup power systems. The two species worked together as if they had been allies for years. Ambassador, Chen said, what if we could prove that freedom and order can exist together? What if we could show you a different way? How? Let us go back to Earth. Let us show the Confederation what humanity can do when we're not trying to kill each other. Zethkri looked around at his crew working alongside their former enemies. He looked at the humans who had risked their lives to save alien survivors. He looked at the impossible thing that had just happened. The High Council will not approve this, then don't ask them, Chen said. Just come and see. 3 days later, the Void Render hung in Earth's orbit again. But this time it was not alone. Human repair ships worked alongside alien crews, fixing damage from the battle. Engineers from both species shared ideas and learned from each other. Ambassador, Zethkri stood in the observation deck of his ship, watching Earth turn slowly below. Admiral Chen stood beside him, pointing out the continents and cities. That's where I grew up, she said, indicating a cluster of lights on the night side of the planet. New Angeles, my father worked in the shipyards there. Your father built warships? No. Cargo haulers mostly. Ships to carry food and medicine between the colonies. Sometimes passenger ships for families who wanted to move to new worlds. Zethkri studied the planet below. From space, Earth looked peaceful. No massive defensive installations, no orbital weapon platforms, just a blue and green world covered with lights that meant cities, farms, and homes. Your world has no serious military defenses, he observed. We never thought we needed them. Until 3 days ago, we didn't know anyone else was out there. In Confederation space, every world bristles with weapons. Every species lives in fear of their neighbors. Maybe that's why you need the Confederation to keep order. The ambassador was quiet for a moment. Perhaps. Dr. Webb's voice came through the communication system. Ambassador, Admiral, you might want to come to the conference room. We've made an interesting discovery. They found Dr. Webb surrounded by alien data tablets and human computer screens. He looked excited and tired at the same time. What have you found, Doctor? Chen asked. I've been comparing the Confederation's historical records with what we know about extinct species. The pattern is fascinating and horrible. Dr. Webb activated a holographic display. It showed a map of the galaxy with different colored dots representing different species. Every species that joined the Confederation was given the same ultimatum. You gave us, surrender or die. Most chose surrender. This is known, Zethkri said, but here's what's interesting. Every species that joined voluntarily never developed beyond their initial technology level. They became dependent on Confederation science and lost their ability to innovate. The hologram changed, showing technological development over time. Species that joined early showed flat lines. No advancement, no growth, no change. The species that resisted and were destroyed were often the most innovative. The Velnathi had developed new forms of space travel. The Corvani had discovered methods of terraforming that could create paradise worlds in decades instead of centuries. Chen studied the display. They were destroyed because they were creative? They were destroyed because creativity leads to change, and change threatens order, Dr. Webb said. The Confederation doesn't just rule through military might. It rules by making sure nobody advances beyond them. Zethkri looked uncomfortable. Order must be maintained. Progress without guidance leads to chaos, does it? Dr. Webb asked. Ambassador, in your long history, how many wars has the Confederation prevented? Thousands. Our intervention has saved countless lives. And how many species have discovered new sciences or technologies under Confederation rule? The ambassador was quiet. None, Dr. Webb continued. In 300 years of Confederation peace, there has been no significant scientific advancement in any member species. You've created stability by stopping progress. Admiral Chen felt pieces clicking together in her mind. That's why our tactics surprised you. You've spent centuries fighting species that use the same technologies, the same strategies. You've never faced innovation because you don't allow it to exist. On Earth below them, the lights of cities sparkled like stars. Each light represented people living, working, creating, dreaming of better futures. President Martinez's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, we're receiving reports from our colonies. Several alien ships have arrived at different star systems. They're not attacking, but they're watching. Chen looked at Zethkri. Your people? Other Confederation ships. When the void, Render did not report our successful mission. They came to investigate. Are they going to attack? That depends on what I tell them. The three of them stood quietly for a moment, watching Earth turn below. Finally, Chen spoke. What are you going to tell them? Zethkri was quiet for a long time. When he finally answered, his voice was different, thoughtful instead of cold. I am going to tell them that humanity represents something new. Not chaos, not war, but a different kind of order. Order that includes change, growth, innovation. Will they believe you? Some will, others will not. The Confederation is not unified in all things. Some species remember what they lost when they surrendered their freedom. Some still dream of the stars they once reached for. Dr. Webb leaned forward. What if we could offer them an alternative? Not chaos, but freedom with responsibility. Not conquest, but cooperation. You would share your technologies with species that have been enemies for centuries? Chen thought about Captain Santos and her crew, who had died to save people they had never met. She thought about the human engineers now working to repair an alien warship that had come to destroy them. Ambassador, 3 days ago, your people tried to kill us all. Right now, my engineers are volunteering their free time to fix your ship. If we can do that, we can probably figure out how to get along with anybody. Zethkri made that sound that might have been laughter, but now it sounded warm. The High Council will resist this idea. Then we don't start with the High Council, Chen said. We start with the species who remember what freedom felt like. We show them that they can have order without surrendering their dreams. And if the High Council decides to destroy us all? Chen smiled. It was the same smile she had worn when she decided to fight instead of surrender. Then we'll do what humans always do when someone tells us something is impossible, which is, we'll prove them wrong. Over the next several hours, they worked together to compose a message. Not a surrender, not a demand, but an invitation. They sent it to every Confederation world, every member species, every ship in their vast empire. The message was simple. Humanity offered a choice: continue living under Confederation rule, or join a new alliance based on cooperation instead of submission. Freedom with responsibility. Progress with wisdom. Order with dreams. Some species would choose to stay with the Confederation. Some would choose to join humanity's growing alliance. Some would choose to forge their own path entirely. But for the first time in 300 years, they would have a choice. As the Void Render prepared to depart Earth's orbit, now carrying human diplomats and scientists to worlds that had never seen free people, Admiral Chen stood in her command center and watched the stars. Lieutenant Park approached with a communication report. "Ma'am, we're getting responses from 12-star systems already. 3 species are requesting meetings. 2 are asking for technical exchanges. 1 is asking for help with something called remembering how to explore." Chen smiled. "Set up the meetings, schedule the exchanges, and find someone who knows about exploration." "Yes, ma'am." "And Admiral?" "Yes?" "The President wants to know what to call this new alliance." Chen thought about it. They needed a name that reflected what they were trying to build. Not an empire based on conquest, not a confederation based on submission, but something entirely new. "Tell him we'll call it the Hope Coalition." "Hope Coalition?" 3 days ago, Ambassador Zethkri told us that hope was lost the moment we faced their battleship. Chen looked out at the stars where new friends and old enemies were making choices that would reshape the galaxy. He was wrong. Hope was born the moment we chose to face it anyway. Outside the command center windows, the stars looked different now. Not cold and distant, but warm with possibility. Somewhere out there, species that had forgotten how to dream were remembering. Somewhere out there, people who had never been free were choosing freedom. And somewhere out there, new friends were waiting to be found among the endless stars. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place.